Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Praise Podcast. My name is Eric Lyde, and it is so good to be joining you once again here today, coming to you from the new and improved Praise Podcast Studios. And, of course, I am joined by the one and only, the co-host above any other co-host, the Brooke Paninsky is in the house. Brooke, as I was doing that intro, I think that there are things that we all become known for in a way, and I think I have fallen into this niche. Is it niche or niche?
I don't know.
We'll think about that. But niche of I've kind of become this intro guy.
Yeah.
Because I now on this past Tuesday did my 4th wedding in which no, I did not sing at it. No, I did not officiate it. But I did the bridal party reception intros.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
And that's like become my thing, I guess. Like people know me for
the intro guy.
I'm the announcement intro guy.
That's good.
Yeah. So anyways, as I was just doing that, it just came to my mind that maybe that's what I am in life, Maybe I'm the intro guy.
Yeah, so far.
So far,
so good.
So far. Anyways, welcome. It's good to have you. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Brooke, what do we need to, what do we need to tell them right off the bat? What should they do to get the most out of their Praise Podcast experience?
I feel like that's a trick question.
Ooh.
But in my opinion, you should probably like and subscribe and share and all of the things.
Yes.
You should also comment, email in, interact with each other on our Instagram.
Yes.
That's always really fun.
Yeah.
And
speaking of that, speaking of Instagram, last episode we asked for some specific feedback, and some of you gave it, and so I guess we'll need to work on that.
So one thing that was cool, there are two things that I highlighted in my brain for that's really good. One was that an opportunity for the people who are listening to be community with one another, which is incredible and a wonderful idea. And so then it's just okay, well then for right now, just with where we are, just the opportunity to be in the comments, get each other's handles, do all the things. Yeah. So that's kind of a way that the people who are all on the listening side of this can just kind of get to know each other and have conversations or whatever. So just interacting with that profile would be great. And then hopefully as we grow and as interaction kind of just increases and authentically just happens, we can kind of move into, maybe other platforms of means of conversation, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, and we had another suggestion as well, that hopefully we'll be making an intentional point to talk about. But just on our favorites page or resources page, we've got podcast and books and items and all sorts of things on there. And it was kind of said to be I would love to hear why, or what about them made them your favorites, or what about them, I guess, made you want to recommend them to all your listeners. Yeah. And so, just giving some more background as to maybe what it's about, or how we came across it, or how we were able to implement that material, or we found it beneficial for ourselves, and why we then recommend it to you. So that was kind of cool. I think just kind of getting inside our brain even more was what was requested, which is surprising that people want to know more of our thoughts, but
if
that's
only
amazing.
They knew what they were asking for.
It's so good. That's a good idea. So there's just a couple things like that. So thank you for your feedback. And I spent a lot of the day yesterday actually just kind of mapping out some social stuff. So hopefully we can figure out our social media game eventually, sooner than later. But one day we will. It's just not in our nature, but we're willing to try.
We're trying.
We're trying.
Learning.
Anyways,
trying. Growing.
Yeah,
all these
speaking of
things.
growing, our playlist is just growing and growing and growing. We had, of course, so far 6 new songs so far within season
Yeah.
4. But there's like, I mean, you could push play on our Spotify playlist and never hear the same song twice for like a day.
Yeah, that's wild.
Isn't that nuts?
It's really nuts.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I think that's really also kind of awesome. So
Yeah. Should we
speaking of
make the
that,
list grow
let's do
even
it.
more?
Let's give it 2 more.
I want to go first today.
Do it. Go first.
All right. So I'm going to attempt to do a song that isn't already on the list because I feel like maybe I've the last few times
We go back.
maybe doubled
It
that,
happens.
but it,
Yeah.
so this one is called 1,000 Generations by Stewardship. And I don't really think it's all that new of a song. I think this song has been around for a bit now, but I just have either connected with it for the first time or finally discovered it or remembered it, whatever. But man, it's just a good song. Like some of the lyrics in the verse are just, let's see here. What's that first verse? I left a piece of my heart at the cross, and you carried it with you to heaven above. All day and night my soul eagerly waits to see heaven come and your kingdom invade. There wasn't space for my sin and my shame, but that didn't stop you from calling my name and waking me up from this heartbroken place with your songs of your freedom and notes of your grace. It's good. It is good. Saying, "Come now, Lord Jesus, restore what you've made." Just really good lyrically, and it just builds into this like just massive. It's just big. Like I like big, and
You like
and
a moment.
Full. I
Yeah.
like a moment that like
You're a drummer.
it is. Yeah,
That's why.
there's that as well, but like I like a song that starts me. Like almost tells a story, but then almost gets very anthem-y and just huge at the end.
Yeah,
And
it's quite the journey,
Yeah.
melodically.
Yeah, because so that was
It's good.
the other song that I think we've done already, but it's kind of like same SEU worship. What a God is the same. Like again, lyrically, what was that one? What's the one lyric that we were talking
If
about?
the highest place
yeah.
I think it's reach is at your feet, then I've got it all, or something like that. I'd have to look to make sure word for word.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Yeah, but that song too. I mean, the live version of that song, holy smokes! I don't know how you could listen to that song. I don't know how you could be in that room live and not just be like on your face by the end of it. I mean,
it's
that
really
was just
good.
like that was a trip. In my car is where I was driving. So at this wedding, I had to be at the rehearsal dinner, and I was just in the car by myself and was driving. It was in the middle of nowhere, just like in this place, cool place, but just middle of nowhere. And so I was driving through all these country roads at night, and those 2 songs came on, and I was like, yeah. I had a moment in
love that.
the middle of nowhere, Alto Pass on Monday night, just me. It's 9:00 at night. I'm just driving. It's dark, and I'm like, good night. I about had to pull over.
That's really funny. Good.
But yeah, so those 2 songs
the
for
best
sure.
songs.
But 1,000 Generations, SEU worship, you should listen to that song for sure, and it will probably automatically roll right into What a God, and you should just let it do its thing there because.
Yeah, that's a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So mine for this episode is Everything That Has Breath, and it's a Jesus Culture song with Bryan and Katie Torwalt. And again, it's just one of those songs also that takes you on a journey, and I love it. It comes out and it says, we lift our hands to the heavens and we are here for you. We reach out or we reach for the hem of your garment. We know what it can do. We refuse to go through the motions. When the King is in the room, hear the sound of our devotion. Let it build a throne for you. Then it says, let everything that has breath praise. It's just really good. But I'm all about
Is that new?
It's new-ish, yeah. Okay, so then it goes on to verse 2, and it says it says, we've come to pour out oil to wash our Savior's feet. Every drop from every bottle can't compare to your glory. We refuse to bring an offering that doesn't cost us anything because you're worth everything. Let everything that has breath praise. So
That's good.
it's so good. And of course, the storytelling you brought up, I think of it being just an ode to some of the stories that are such a posture of worship and faith and the miraculous in the Bible that we do tend to read and to go to and to lean on when sharing certain things. And I like the ode to both of those, just the hem of his garment, that whole thing, and then of course the oil, the offering, and as just a worshiper, offering means so much, and you say and you think about the word cost or costly quite often because that is so predominant in our thoughts and in the forefront of our mind. And I think it's also the great accountability that comes with the position too of just like recognizing the spot you're in your flesh when you show up and trusting that the Lord's going to have to work in and through your own flesh before he positions you to be able to kind of be used in a way that's in front of many. And again, I'm no Bible scholar, but I do think that it's like there's an inward work that he does with me. I will feel it before I feel like I can really actually step into like my spirit self. Like there's just a difference. Like I feel the difference when I make myself step in, and then it takes a little bit of time, and then the Lord just in his presence. He'll come in and he'll do a quick work, and he shifts my perspective, and he takes off the weight, and he gives me the energy that I need. And then, you just start hearing his voice, and it's just this whole inner dialogue that is happening in worship with like me and him. And granted, people are watching it, not knowing it's taking place. But then it's like, once the Lord gets me in check, I do feel like what flows out of that then is different because it is from him. So then I'm almost just a positioned vessel in the way that I need to be for the way that he needs to move through me when you're leading a congregation of people. And so a song like that is very powerful to me, and especially when it's talking about, just the cost of your offering. And then the call to praise is huge, and let everything that has breath praise. And that's you and me. That's, and it's the group of people we lead, or every weekend it's every person in the body of Christ. And so anyways, but no, I love that song. It's really good.
That's really good. Well, I don't know, we've talked about it probably a million times on here as well, but there really is just, I think we take for granted, or we just don't think about how important like the preparation part is before those kind of things, and the intentionality behind making the choice, because it is really hard. Like, it's hard to, there's always so much swirl, at least in my brain, there's always so much swirling around, and so many distractions. There's so many insecurities or things that are like, swirl, just things that, that are distracting. And, that I think we all deal with that, whether we're, on the stage or not.
Yeah, it's just a human thing. It's our flesh
thing. And so, I think we like just the preparation of going into those moments, and when that you're going to be stepping into something, the importance behind being ready to pay the cost, because it is whether you got to, no matter what you're doing, to really do it is a sacrifice. And so, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Very good. Very good. Good deal.
So let's chat about and maybe attempt. I don't honestly know that I don't know how much words that I can put behind some things yet.
How many?
Like legitimate. How many? Yeah, how that's, yeah.
Sorry. Moving on.
Still learning.
It's okay.
At least it wasn't a cuss word this time.
Yeah, it's progress. Praise God. No,
Refining.
I'm
But,
with you.
yeah,
I'm with you.
but
I'm
so,
with you.
So here's what I think we're going to, like,
Mm-hmm.
first off, if you don't know, God is just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And God is just incredibly good, and He is incredibly faithful. And He, for whatever reason, we are in a time, a season right now where in so many different ways, both big and small, we are getting to witness like real miracles, real life change, just real moves of God, like legitimate, real, wild moves of God.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just like, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and that's why I just don't know.
Like, we need to talk about it.
We need to talk about it, but I just don't eat. I literally don't. Like, I'm not trying. I'm not trying to be like over dramatic.
No,
I just literally don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just talk about this. So in the last couple weeks, and this is just as believers. So I mean, like, I know that it's very easy for like Eric and I to come and talk about like where we're at. Well, because that's what we do, you know, and sometimes it can maybe not be as relatable because positions and perspectives or whatever. But this is something so important because it just has everything to do with being a part of the body of Christ. And the last couple weeks, what's today's date? November 8th? It's a Friday.
Friday, November
2024.
8th, 2024.
We just had the presidential election.
Survived.
And it's,
the earth is still standing.
It's just, I mean, and I know everyone, it makes me kind of emotional. I know so many people feel so many different ways about the election. And this isn't a conversation about the election, but it is a conversation about a move of God and in our country, and even from that perspective, but also within God's people. And I don't think that they are unrelated, although I'm not equipped or smart enough to talk about it. Like, I don't get too involved, and it's not because I don't want to be, but truly it's just very intimidating to me. And it's very hard because politics can bring out a very passionate side of people, and then that's not always godly. And so then, you know, you don't want to be identified as a certain party, but then like if you're not, then like people have something to say about it, because whether you do or whether you don't, people can take on all these assumptions about you and what you believe and what you are for and what you are about or what you are against. And so why am I talking about the politics, the election, all of that? Because I believe there's a tension point in a move of God that's happening all at once with his people and his church, and they all somehow really are cohesive with one another. And so Christians right now, we're at this tension point, and in your own churches and your own families, also just as a country, you can feel it and you can see it. There's a great divide. There's a great need for God. There's a great lacking of conversation about all of it, you know? And I think that right now where we're coming from is, you know, as leaders, you're like, how do you lead in such a tender moment of his church and of a move of God? You don't want to misstep, and you don't want to missteward, and you know, you don't want to cause more confusion, you don't want to cause more chaos. So then you're walking in this fine line of, God, what do I say, what do I not say, what does not saying say, you know? And it just can be very complicated as leaders, but it's very complicated as Christians, you know. And so what is Brooke getting at here? What is the point? The point being on the side of this genuine move of God that is so vast, and having this perspective of seeing it, you know, in a political state, and then also seeing it in a personal state. We're in our hometown, we're in our home church, and you just see the great division that politics has even brought within a church. I'm not talking about like, there's anything going on in our church that, I don't mean that, but it's like, we would be foolish to think there weren't, if right now, we had our congregation of people and we said who voted blue and who voted red, you would have a great division. You have neighbors, you drive down the street and you have neighbors living across the road from each other, one with one sign and one with the other for the political candidate. Like, division is just everywhere in the church, because it's everywhere, and the enemy moves. He does a lot of damage. He does a lot of damage in seasons like that, and in relationships like that. Anyways, what we've been able to see right now in our home church is, in the midst of all this division, that is, maybe we're not talking about it, and maybe it's not like a pressing thing, but you do know that you have X amount of people in a room, all in which who feel a certain way that they do about, just the ins and outs of the election that just happened. But yet, so many of us in the same room are witnessing baptisms and salvations and lives truly being changed. And I don't mean that lightly. I don't mean just like, oh, someone was a believer or not a believer and like now they are. That's huge. I mean, of course that's huge. But I'm talking about when now you have people, and I know he won't mind me talking about this, but we have a very dear friend, and it's just like, you hear his testimony, and his testimony is one of the many tension points right now in our society, in our culture, within this election, within the church, the capital C church. And yet you see a move of God in real time transform and change, and on an authentic, beautiful way that only he can do. And then we get back to this point and we're just like, okay, God, like, you really are real. You really do position and posture us in a way that's different than what culture says. You do position and posture us more than just red and blue. You really do position and posture us more than political things will say. And again, these are people in the church, right? I'm talking about believers. I don't know, maybe I'm just rambling at this point, but what I'm saying is the weight of when God really moves, and the fact that he really is real, and the fact that there is now a call for Christians everywhere to be so aware, and yet and the call to be so confident in who he is, and also like his standards and his precedents. It's the temptation right now in the church as Christians is to maybe not say much, to be careful with how we walk, to not offend. And of course, we don't want to offend. But Jesus is such a beautiful illustration of how you can teach and how you can love righteously, and how when you do that and you're praying for a move of God and you trust him with it, how he really can handle these great tension points that are weighing so deeply on people in our nation right now. And yet, even within the capital C church, there's, again, the great division. And you're like, people be like, well, how can Christians vote red? And then the other side, well, how could Christians vote blue? Like, you hear it all the time. Yeah. And I really do feel like there's a call, the Lord is calling us out of a color and into his gospel. And he's saying, like, this is how you are to live. And so there is a great accountability as a Christian and as a believer to live that way, and to believe that the way he can restore and redeem people from bondage in real time still happens and makes an eternal difference. So I think it is hard to articulate in this podcast episode. It might feel a little strange. I don't know. But I think that's where we're at in our thoughts right now in ministry. And as believers, is just the call now forward of, if you really say you want a move of God, and if we really recognize these tension points and have compassion about these tension points and approach these tension points beyond just our political party, like we really are going to see lives changed. We really are going to see heaven come to earth. And when you have supernatural encounters like that, it does leave you in moments like this as leaders, as people, as Christians, as just like speechless. They say, Brooke, you just talked for 20 minutes. It didn't leave you speechless. But it does leave you in a spot where you're like, I don't even know how to articulate this correctly or in a way that translates well or productively. Yeah. So I don't know if anything I'm saying does, but I just, that's where I'm at. Yeah. Those are my thoughts from the last few weeks of leading.
Yeah. And talking about a little bit what you were mentioning there, I think it popped in my mind, really the concept of, even when Jesus came and was here, there was such an expectation by so many people of, really on a political side of like, he's going to be this type, he's come to do this type of ruling, or he's come to take over this or to do that. And I think, obviously, he said it multiple times in the Bible, like, he didn't come to be a human king, as far as like as we see them, and so that was not the purpose. It was such a larger, like we were thinking so small, like everybody at that time was limiting him to, like just rule on this earth of just as a physical king.
Well, and it made the most sense to them and what they knew in their culture too.
And I think even today. Mm-hmm. We're still doing that. You know what I mean? Like there's so many people that are putting, their let's just call it what it is, their faith in, a political party to come in and do, to carry these things. And I think what we've seen on so many different levels recently is God coming in and reminding us of like, guys, that's not why, like, I didn't send my Holy Spirit to walk, like, it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
And it's so much, all these tension points that you're talking about, they are real tension points. There were tension points when Jesus, there were cultural tension points. That hasn't changed. They're very much real. They very much are things that we have to work through, but I think at the end of the day, God is giving us real reminders of like, yes, those are earthly things that we're going to have to figure out. But I'm so much bigger than all of that.
Yeah.
And these tension points are maybe tension points, but let's not forget that at the end of the day, I'm still God.
Yeah.
And like, I'm still after my people and I'm still after my children, whether they're red or blue. And we've seen that, and we've seen how, like you mentioned, to literally witness the tension points of that has been so, one of those that has been so prevalent in our society, and to see God just step in and say, let me show you, let me show you how this, like, it's not this or that. It's show them me, give me space, give me permission to come in and to work, and I will set it right if you just get out of the way, really, in a lot of ways. Wow. And there's been, it's heavy almost,
Well, it's the weight of glory. It really is just this like reverence of like, of just like who he is and what he's actually doing. And when it becomes real to you, like, you just approach it in a different way. Like it feels weighty and heavy, but not in a bad way, but in a reverent way.
Yeah.
And it really is just like, you just like, you don't even know how to handle it because you don't want to mishandle it. Because you recognize like, just like, I don't know, like how good it is.
And that was, I mean, one of the things, so this, I don't know, what was it, Sunday? So this past Sunday, we had an event that we do called Baptisms and Bonfires. So it's a 3-week series our church does, really teaching really just fundamentals, basics, biblical basics of what baptism is, walking through that, and picking out all the different questions of sprinkling and baptism by immersion or not by immersion, or rebaptism, just all the things that do I even need to do it? All of those questions and talking points that can come around it. So one, if you have often wondered about that, I would encourage you, if you go to centralnow.com, you can watch all 3 weeks of that, where John and James teach on baptism from a just a really good biblical, basic, fundamental approach to what it is, why it's important, and why you should do it if you haven't. And so if that's something that you've ever wondered about or thought, I would encourage you to do that. But anyways, so at the end of that, then, well, I guess we've always done kind of an outdoor baptism service. For the last couple of years, it's kind of morphed into this really cool kind of
Well, it was in the summertime.
Yeah, we used to do this in the summertime, and it was just so dang
miserably
hot. It was so miserable. Like, we'd be out there on this parking lot. It'd be 100 degrees. We're up there leading. I mean, like, just we're pouring sweat.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get baptized solely to get into the pool so they can cool off. Like, it was just such a
But last year, we changed it to the fall.
Yeah. So then we were like, please, can we stop sweating while we do this? Like, let's freeze instead. And so we did that, and then we moved it to the fall. Then of course fall. I was actually trying to remember, and I think because somebody asked like what, and I was like, I don't even know. But I think what happened was we were going to do a first Thursday outside, like bonfire style. We wanted to do a first Thursday, like kind of that vibe. Let's have bonfires. Let's do some worship outside and just kind of have that vibe. And then when we started talking that through with John, and then James was like, well, hey, our group celebration is ending. Maybe we could tie it to that. And then we were like, well, hey, what if we just included baptisms in this as well? And the next thing you know, baptisms and bonfires was born. And so we did it last year, and then we did it again this year. And it
was so good.
I think two of my favorite events.
I keep knocking my microphone.
I've hit mine multiple times as well. It just is what it is. It is what it is. But like, especially it's prom. I love that event. That's so much fun. And then this is without it. I mean, just
it's so good.
Oh, it's just such. I mean, it was just really cool. And then this was our first year we got to do it at our Carbondale campus as well. So anyways, long story short, we saw between Carbondale and Mount Vernon, we saw 69 people.
Come to find out.
We thought it was 70.
We were told 70.
And we were off by one. Lord forgive us.
Well, and it wasn't even us who was off by one.
Well, that's true, but it happens.
Anyways. But there was about 70 people.
Yeah. And so like obviously, I mean, that's just an emotional thing in general, to sit there and you, when especially, you know some of the stories, the background, what led those people to that spot. And
you had family members.
Family
whole
members.
families getting baptized together.
Yeah, you see, we got to baptize my daughter Blakely.
Yeah.
And you see parents baptizing kids. You see husbands and wives getting baptized together. I mean, you see, influential people and mentors in other people's lives that, it's just a powerful, it's emotional. It's a powerful thing to just sit and watch, story after story after story, get in the tub and, declare their faith and get baptized. And then there are literally hundreds of people standing out there just celebrating, it's just so cool. And I'm even getting,
good.
I'm getting watery.
Good for you. It is so cool.
But and then like I said, we got to do that. They had 17 in Carbondale, and but yeah, I don't even remember where I was going with all this. But that's one of the things we're referencing is when we talk about what we've seen and what it's been wild, and it just in general, like it's crazy to think about, and this is not a bragging thing or anything. This is just like, again, telling you what God is doing in a church in Mount Vernon and Illinois and Carbondale, Illinois. But I cannot remember the last weekend that we didn't have a baptism, that we did not celebrate at least one baptism in a service. And like, I think about like how, like, I think we've even gotten so, like, it's just so, we're so used to it. We're like, we don't even ask, are there any baptisms
like,
anymore?
what
We
baptisms?
ask how many and what service.
And I mean, truly, you have to think like how many, there, even for our church, like that wasn't like to have a baptism was rare, but it was also like a lot of children who would be baptized.
Yeah.
And now it's like you have children being baptized, but you've got like people from so many different walks of life and so many different stages and ages represented in the baptistry, and genders alike. Like, just, you got old ladies getting baptized and old men getting baptized, and you've got, like young married couple with, a few kids, and you've got, just anything in between. And it's just, it's super powerful. But like, we didn't always have baptisms every weekend, and there are churches who are like, who can relate to that, like it's not something we have every weekend. And, like right now we really do have, we have baptisms nearly every single weekend. And then to have, almost 70 in just an event that we had, I mean, I think that's also wild. Like, it's just cool. So anyways.
But, yeah, and then, so you get to see that, and you get to be a part of that, and that's, that was powerful. And again, I just wish, I wish we could just tell like every story, because there are, not, some of them are first time, or there was not some, crazy life event that got them to that point, but then there's so many that are, and it's like, gosh, if only people could just like, and I'm sure someday maybe there will be a time for that. But, and then just even just even last night, like we had first Thursday last
prayer
night,
experience
which
a couple weeks ago.
Prayer. I mean, there's just not enough. I mean, it's just, and it's so like, it's reassuring for me, and I'm sure you feel the same way, of like, it's just, it's so reassuring that it's God stuff, because it's just, there's just no way it could come from us.
Yeah.
And there's no way that, we aren't good enough to even manufacture these things like that. We're just, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it is only God. And I mean, the prayer experience, so our small groups, they, ended, and, one of the things that they ended with was like a 24-hour fast, and then, to come in and do this prayer experience, which, this year was a little different than how they had done it in the past, and Brooke led the groups through that, and really it was just simply really a time of like, Brooke gave some testimony on here's the why you should just step into this, and here's the why, and here's the what of we're going to do now. And it was basically like, we're just going to pray for each other, and we're going to take as much time as we need for literally every person in your group to just be prayed for, be prayed over. If they want, be anointed with oil. And it was, I mean, it's the first session started at 4:00, and I think maybe the last group ended at 8:30 ish. And there was a point to where, at one point, we're just sitting at the top of the room, just watching it all. And it was just, you hear the laughs, and you hear the tears, and you hear, there was just real joy. There was real encounter. There was
Yeah.
real, you could feel real weight being lifted off people. We were talking, like, and I'll even just ask it, like, when is the last time that you had somebody lay hands on you, anoint you with oil, or, but like legitimately just the last time that somebody didn't text you, say praying for you, but legitimately was like with you, praying for you. And, we were talking like there's probably so many that this is the first time maybe ever, or for sure, probably the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
And that was kind of wild.
Yeah. One of my favorite things, about our church, but also just like, no matter where we are, I think, Central, we can do a lot of big things. Like we put on a lot of big events. Our Christmas services are coming up. We've got 10 of them. Last year, like 10,000 people came. Was that right? Like it was close to that. But it's just like we literally we have the LED boards and we do the, just the stuff. We had real camel. We can we do the things, and we're just gifted with the means to do that and the creativity of our team to do that and to make this, and God helps us, have these spectacular, very grand, also Holy Spirit filled moments. And my favorite thing though about where we're at is to be able to be in the same room that something so grand happened in, and yet now to truly strip it all back, and all we had was a rug on the stage, we had candles lit, the lights were down, we had a pad going, and oil on the front of the stage for people who wanted to come and grab that. And all we did was set the expectation, the atmosphere to be of faith and of expectancy. And then just said, now we're going to pray. And for that moment and time and that ministry was so grand. And it's just like, because it was only God in a space that he was welcomed and allowed to come, and that we had just the aware that maybe some people are uncomfortable with this. Maybe some people have never been prayed over. Maybe some people don't really understand anointing oil, or think maybe we shouldn't do X, Y, and Z. You have all these reasons to maybe not, right? And then to still have the green light from the Lord to be like, that this is what I'm asking you to do. And so then you're just, all right, this is what we're going to do. And you do it and you step into it. And then that's all you do. And then you let him do all the work. And all the work, it had people, the testimonies you even heard just from coming together to pray, was wild, just wild. And the encounters people had, just wild. I had a woman come up to me. I shared, just setting the expectation and being like, I want to share my testimony because I want you to know it is real, And so I shared this encounter that I had with the Lord, and when he healed my body and allowed me, I believe truly from that moment on and all that would happen after, to be able to have my son Nolan. And I shared about that encounter and what it felt like. I shared how truly his presence manifested in and on my body and what that whole experience felt like. And I mean, it's not something I talk a lot about, although it is one of my favorite stories and seasons of my life to share about because of what God did. I felt permission in that moment that was what I was supposed to share. And so I did. And there was a woman who then came up to me afterwards and was like, just weeping. And she just said, Brooke, she said, how you shared about how your body just got hot and you could just feel, and just repeating the story that I told her. I said, yes. And she said, with tears in her eyes, she said, that's what I just experienced. And I just thought, all because we just allowed God to come into a space where we're praying. And yet this woman encountered his presence in a way where when he rested on her as people were laying hands and praying for her, she felt his heat from head to toe and never had before. And she's, an older woman. And I just thought it took about 5 minutes to plan this after he showed it. It took a few hours out of our schedule to facilitate. And that woman had an experience, and many had an experience that truly marked them by the presence of God and for the rest of their life. And like that's the kind of God we serve, because he really is alive and active. And those are moments where you think, I don't even know how to really talk about it, because I feel the weight of it and the glorious weight of it, the reverent weight of it, of just like, you're just so real, and you really, truly just made yourself known to these hungry people that will forever change their life, forever change the way they interact with God, forever change the way that they believe that they can experience him, or that he does move, when you have a moment where these stories in the Bible that you do believe actually become what you experience, it shifts everything. It just does. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like those are the kind of things right now we're having to steward and getting to witness and being challenged to step into, to not only lead, but also facilitate and also receive. It's just really powerful. So I think, I don't even know how long this episode is right now, but I think really the word that keeps coming to mind is just like the identity crisis. And we can leave that as just, identity crisis right now in our culture that we know and recognize and see on the news, and but also the identity crisis like of and within God's children themselves, of just really not knowing their full maybe authority, or even recognizing the full invitation at hand, because they still haven't learned or experienced that side of the Father yet. And it's just, the Lord is after his children. And as he reveals himself to his children, they get a revelation of him. They then, just crushes the identity crisis that's happening in our culture in various different ways, in and outside of the church. And I think, to summarize, just the idea of this in this conversation is just that, like, the Lord truly is after his children, and so that we can gain a true, our true identity as just who he made us to be, because of who he is, and in real time and in a real authentic way. And when it's real and authentic into him, it changes everything forever. And so I think that's where we're at. We're seeing it happen. I think that's how we can pray. Yeah. I think, not being identified as a Democrat or a Republican, but as a child of God for the things of God in this time that God is moving is so important. Mm-hmm. And that more than anything else, that's what we're chasing after, and that's what we're in pursuit of, and that's what we're contending for, and that's what our lives are built around, is as a Christian and as a disciple. I'm for you, God, and for the things, God, you are for. And in a time where people want to identify themselves within certain things and in certain ways to make sense of certain things, it's just like our identity is only found in Christ. And we are called to operate in that confidence and in that truth. And when we do that, we will watch the real living God change lives right in front of us every time. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we got to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's because, like, we don't share all of this just to be like, oh, here's an update what's going on in our church and us. But, like, because somebody is going to watch this and hopefully be encouraged that God is doing things, you know, and so, and whether they've seen it with their own eyes, we have.
So then, just that testimony,
And I think it's just like we have to talk about it, and I think there's a different urgency, and there's a different permission right now that God is giving to say, like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to let you experience it, I'm going to let you be a part of it, and then I want you to share it.
Yeah.
And I think we have to do that because I think, again, like, it can get so, it can be so easy to even, especially within the church, of like, even at times, like, words like deeper or things like that, can be such trigger points at some point. And it's God's like, I don't like, I want you to talk about it, and I want you to share it. And when people are ready, then that's up to them. But, it's just, as you've said, God's after his people, he's after his children, and he's ready and waiting and willing if you're ready and to step into it. And I think for us, we are just, again, if we talk about the weight of that, it's not a bad weight at all. It's a very reverent and holy and glorious weight. But then there's also the weight of, like, we're not sure how, but we have to try to articulate it and open the conversation and begin the conversation. And maybe that would be a great way for you to jump into this conversation of, like, how are you seeing God work in, through your eyes, in your sphere of people in the world, and wherever,
even your home church,
home church, and wherever, because it just feels like it's such a world, and, like, specifically I think the United States, we're such a body of people that deep down, I think sometimes we pretend to like division and divisiveness, but the reality is, I think we're a people that want to unite behind something. Like we want to be united behind something, and I think God is doing his very best to be like, here I am. Like I am the one, and that can be the uniting piece of all of this. And so I think, like, what better way to help unite is to just share these stories of what God is doing. And so I know we would for sure love to read and hear from you on, what God's doing in your life, what he's doing in your church, what he's doing in your community, what you've seen him do in friends, and just whatever it is, your family. Because I think that's just where we're at right now, is that we're in a spot where we just need to be talking about what God is doing, because he is doing so many huge things, so many big things, and so many small things too, but will have a big impact. And so, whether you share them with us, share them with somebody at lunch or around your dinner table, whatever it is, I would just encourage you. We would love to hear those. And if you don't send them to us, send them to somebody and hear from them. But you can email us, Eric@thepraisepodcast.com or Brooke@thepraisepodcast.com. We would love...
So good.
Yeah, we would love to hear from you. You can also go to the website, which is thepraisepodcast.com. And on there is a section where I think it says join the conversation, and you can type in your message or whatever you want right there. And that's a way that that's basically like sending us an email as well. So if you don't want to do the whole email thing, you can just go to thepraisepodcast.com and you can join in the conversation that way. Of course, as Brooke mentioned earlier, following us on Instagram at The Praise Podcast is a great way to stay up to date with if you need song spotlight reminders. Brooke just posted a really cool post, I think yesterday, on kind of our last 3 episodes worth of song spotlights. And of course, we have all of those song spotlights on a ginormous Spotify playlist that you can find through the website or on Spotify.
Yeah.
And if you're curious or you just randomly need like 28 hours worth of music to listen to, we've got you covered on that.
Yeah. And also, so kind of going back with one of the recommendations for what to share, why to share, whatever.
Yeah.
I want to say, you're bringing up the website. When you're on the website, you'll see some of our podcast recommendations.
Yeah.
One of our podcast recommendations is with the Perrys, and that's Jackie and Preston Perry. Well, Jackie Hill Perry. You got to say that.
Yeah.
JHP. And her husband. But they had, they're great teachers. They provide a lot of cool perspective. They challenge you. They stretch you. It's very, very cool to engage in those conversations. But they had an episode on their podcast on October 28th, and it said how to be a Christian during election season. And that is an episode that I think is really great to listen to. It's again about Christians in the election season, and again, that identity, talking about things that we need to talk about, and that's like helpful and encouraging and challenging all at the same time. And so that is one of our recommendations, and that's why we recommend it. And so I feel like that's fitting for the conversation we had today. So yeah, just check it out.
Yeah. So we appreciate you joining, watching, listening. Again, if you're listening to this podcast and you have yet to figure out that you could watch this podcast, you can do that now. So if you've been a listener of the podcast for a long time and would like to switch over to being a watcher and listener, you can do that.
They might say a viewer.
A viewer. Is that? Yes, that sounds like a good encompassing word of both of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do that by finding us on YouTube. Or you can stay listening. Or maybe you've watched and you're like, I can't take that anymore.
I don't want to watch them anymore.
Yeah, I can't take that anymore. Then you can always still just find the audio version of this on all your major podcast platforms. So, hopefully we'll be working on. We got some good recommendations of things for Instagram that we'll add to the list and try to do. I know some people were asking about some behind the scenes stuff on how we do some things, and so one of these days we'll get there,
baby,
and we'll do it. Yeah,
we can't even make Instagram reels yet, so
I feel like there's shots fired.
On that note,
thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us, spending however much time we just spent together. It really is an honor and a joy, and we don't take for granted the fact that you all spend this time with us and join in and build this community. And so really we want to say we love you and we thank you for that. And so just as we always say, let's be people every day in every way that bring the praise. We'll see you